Skyrim mods are booming. We just saw some absolutely incredible new releases, adding things like multiplayer, being able to climb and crawl among a bunch of other amazing but typical Skyrim mods. But the particularly exciting part about all of this is, it's not just the present that is amazing, but the future also. As today we're going to be looking at some absolutely epic DLC-sized upcoming mods on their way to Skyrim, adding in entire new questlines and world spaces to the game, or even some really cool and special new features. And in this video, I want to highlight some of the lesser known of these projects, not just the Beyond Skyrims and Skyblivions of the world. But first, let me change your life. And that's with today's video sponsor, Opera GX. Opera GX is a special version of the Opera browser, built specifically with gamers in mind. And although you may have known about it on PC, Opera GX is also available on mobile with GX Mobile. And you can even connect this to the desktop version. GX Control is probably one of the most valuable parts of Opera GX for me. It helps you boost your performance on your PC by limiting how much CPU, RAM, and network bandwidth your browser is allowed to use. Are you someone who always has a ton of tabs open, is always streaming a video while gaming? Well, then you might be hurting your FPS, and this will help you fix that. But even more useful is GX Player. Allows you to keep all of your music streaming services in one place and easily accessible right in your web browser. You play music from here, and as soon as you start streaming video or audio in one of your browser tabs, your music will automatically stop and automatically start playing again once you're done. Trust me, if you watch music while browsing the internet, you need this. So don't wait and improve your browsing experience on PC or mobile today with Opera GX, and I even put a very convenient download link in the description so you don't have to go looking for where to get it. Looking back at Skyrim, although I have a lot to talk about today, there's a lot more coming in the future as Croatian ModCon is coming back. This being a virtual expo of all things Skyrim mods, I just wanted to give it a shout out at the start of this one. And the first mod I want to talk about is TES Valenwood, which just had a very special announcement as this existing work in progress mod is now joining the larger Beyond Skyrim project, which now means that Beyond Skyrim is covering the entirety of the continent of Tamriel. And yes, I know I just talked about how I wasn't going to be highlighting Beyond Skyrim, but hey, this is a new and recent addition, and I feel like maybe people want to know what this mod is all about if they just heard the news. TES Valenwood, or what is now known as Beyond Skyrim Valenwood, is going to be a recreation of none other than Valenwood, as you could probably guess, where you'll be engaging with some of the local Bosmer and Thalmor forces. The landscape here is largely overgrown forest and really just a lush greenery, and this general aesthetic is carried all throughout the mod, from some of the cities you will be visiting to some of the outfits you will encounter. Valenesti is going to be one of the major cities players can visit in this mod. It's going to be this epic tree city that we could see concept art of. It's really going to have its own identity, and we could even see some of the concept art of the local inhabitants, the king that will be present here, and they're bringing to life other aspects like the unique guard armor that will be used. Valenwood will feature all 10 playable races, with the Bosmer in particular having a big focus, as those are going to be the ones native to Valenwood. But things like the Khajiit as well as the Imperials will also appear here in some of the outskirts of this world space. And although there will be some familiar faces, there'll also be some unique characters in this society, as you will be able to find some more fringe groups with a more animalistic nature to go along with this overall setting. In Valenwood, you're going to face off against some new creatures, you're going to be able to wield a ton of new and unique weapons, and overall I think the idea is to experience a truly unique landscape. And there's going to be things like boats for fast travel and even pig-drawn carriages that will be present throughout this world. And although I hopefully gave you a pretty good visual representation of what you could expect from this mod, they're also doing an AMA this Sunday if you want to find out a bit more. But next up, one that you may have not followed as closely, we do have Valhas. This is going to be a newer New Lands project that's been getting a ton of updates as of late. Valhas is going to be a New Lands based quest mod that will implement a new area roughly the size of Solstheim, and 80% of this world space is already complete. As of late, the mod author has been showing off a ton of this, and it looks amazing. In addition to just the new world space, of course, there's going to be a new main quest, some side quests, as well as a new mage faction and new dungeons and bosses. Stonecrest City will be one of the cornerstone locations of this mod and the capital of the region. The city itself looks great with familiar medieval architecture and even just an overall medieval design and layout, but of course it still is the Elder Scrolls, so you do have some of that representation here also. And beyond this, we could see some of the progress done in some of the surrounding landscapes, featuring both a Dwemer and a Nordic ruin that will likely become some of the dungeons we will get to experience. Thus far, there's been a clear focus on teasing the landscape, and that's not a bad thing. The world space being created by this mod looks very good and definitely gets me personally excited for it. it. We're getting to see a great range of things from actual cities to some of these smaller towns and miscellaneous things mixed in. But have you ever played Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor? It was a pretty good mod that did have one exceptionally good feature, that with the nemesis system, where basically if an enemy beats you in combat or even if you face an enemy and run away from them, they will actually rank up, and there's an entire hierarchy going on with this, with different enemies competing for top spots, getting bonuses as a result, and it's basically a bunch of mini boss fights all throughout the world. And well, as you could probably imagine, a modder is adding something like this to Skyrim. Shadow of Skyrim Nemesis and alternate death system will make it so when an enemy defeats you, instead of your previous save just being loaded, you're going to lose all of your items, gain a debuff on your character, and perhaps most importantly of all, the enemy will gain all of your items and become a named special enemy, as well as get some other buffs to that enemy overall. And it's not just stealing your items in that your inventory largely gets wiped, but the enemy will actually be able to use your overpowered gear if it chooses to. And the debuff you get as a result of losing in battle could be pretty big, with the example the mod author gives being that you can't use shields. And after you respawn from this embarrassing defeat, you're going to get a new quest tasking you with defeating this enemy, who is now of course more powerful and upgraded thanks to all of your items you just gave them. And all of this is fully customizable and modular, as you can see from the in-game menu screenshots the mod author has shared thus far. Unfortunately, no gameplay has been shared of this, and it's definitely one of those situations where, oh, there's no gameplay, is this just really ambitious? But this mod author has created several very popular mods in the past, and even mentions how the mod is largely feature complete as of right now. He's actually planning a release date very soon. It's not like this is years in the future, and everything he describes is fully functional. The overall idea here being that this mod will be a death alternative, no longer just reloading a save, but now death has actual consequence, not just lost progress. You'll have to rearm yourself and actually get back to that NPC with all of your items, who now kind of becomes your nemesis and gets their own characterization to them as well. To me, it sounds like it'll be an incredible mod. I'm very excited to try this out, and it's one of those things that isn't necessarily a traditional DLC-sized experience, but this could really change things up across an entire playthrough and make a Skyrim playthrough a lot more interesting. But speaking of making an entire playthrough more interesting, we also do have Skyrim Extended Cut, which is going to be an overhaul of the main quest in Skyrim and is currently set to release in 2023. Actually, thinking about it, the Nemesis mod as well as Skyrim Extended Cut seem like they would be exceptionally good together. Specifically, what Skyrim Extended Cut will do is overhaul the Dragon Crisis storyline. Things like the Civil War quests will be largely untouched, but now, as a result of installing this mod, you'll see more faction involvement, with the Blades having a much larger role, more characters throughout the story overall, more characterization of certain characters like Alduin, a largely expanded third act, and it's really just modders taking a look at the main quest of Skyrim and expanding it and improving it where they can. With one of the really awesome parts about this being it'll be a novel way to experience Skyrim. It'll make the game feel fresh upon subsequent playthroughs. Although we've had a couple of trailers in the past, as of late this team has been sharing some more specific details about some of the quests that will be changed or implemented with this mod. Blades in the Dark will involve you discovering a registry of surviving Blades members in Skyrim and actually getting them set up in a more proper base with an abandoned keep that you'll be able to even interact with yourself. Trials of the Voice will involve a new companion with Elhana. She'll be attempting to join the Greybeards, and this will kind of provide a twist on the familiar Greybeard questline, as a bunch of new characters will be introduced on it and some of these challenges will be upped, but now you'll kind of have a companion along the way with you. And even early on in the game, you'll be involved in an investigation. Kisem Bolar will contact you investigating the incident at Helgen, and specifically the Thalmor involvement in that. You'll be tasked with infiltrating a Thalmor embassy, as well as you'll actually have some pretty distinct choices during this. You'll be able to go down very defined paths, or really one defined path or another, depending on which choices you make, really bringing the RPG aspects of Skyrim alive. This and several other quest descriptions were just posted on their website, and to me, this mod is incredibly exciting, as it'll really make Skyrim feel familiar but novel. The major story beats will still be there, but things will feel fresh because we've all played the major story beats now, so the journey you have between them will feel greatly expanded. But for those of you after a truly unique experience in Skyrim, we also do have Apotheosis, which is a dark fantasy focused expansion where you'll explore the 17 planes of Oblivion and the Dream Sleeve in an attempt to reclaim the Pieces of Lorkhan's Heart. This involving its own new story, but perhaps even more importantly, a whole host of new dungeons, creatures, and enemies to encounter. Just recently, Apotheosis has been making quite a bit of progress on the Dream Sleeve in particular, which is effectively going to be the collective unconscious, a very weird and bizarre new landscape to explore, and you can see that the landscape work is definitely being done to represent that. This is not meant to be a typical faction hold. The Shaded City is going to be one of the major locations here, and this too looks exceptional, but there'll be some creepy things around the corner, with the Dustman being a highly unstable enemy that will be present in the Dream Sleeve, and this is definitely just nightmare fuel. And although a lot of this is going to be bizarre, unique, and interesting, there's also some familiar names and faces like Molag Bal's throne room and even several of the armor sets that will appear in this mod, and you could really see how this could all come together. Unique locations, but then actually having unique armors or even unique enemies in armor presented to you. Apotheosis has been getting a lot of updates, and it's just been one of those mods to consistently get updates over the past several years. The exciting part being just how unique this all is. A lot of what we've shown in this video is going to be pretty familiar. It is still Skyrim, where this time we're really looking at something that's going to take you to something completely unique, really something we don't see in Skyrim. A lot of this looks just unrecognizable. It'll probably be a trip of an experience, and even just pretty scary from time to time, but definitely something I'm eager to experience for myself. But overall, that's a look at some of the updates around Skyrim's most ambitious upcoming mods without necessarily focusing just on Beyond Skyrim and some of the remake mods. Although with that said, we're definitely going to have some updates on Beyond Skyrim and those remake mods soon. As I mentioned, Creation ModCon is coming, and I'll definitely be highlighting whatever is shown there. With that said though, Skyrim mods are really just hitting all-time new levels, all-time new highs, and even just incredible player counts. Skyrim players have actually increased for the past 3 months in a row, which is absolutely insane for what is now an over 10-year-old game. With that said though, as always again, I thank you all for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and with that, I hope to see you all next time. Later.